Employing people in agriculture is becoming an increasingly complex situation. This video will summarise the key things to consider when you're looking to employ somebody and the key steps that you should follow to get somebody onto your payroll. Many farms will employ people on a self-employed basis to provide valuable extra resources at busy times, be it tractor driving or relief milking. However, HMRC are starting to investigate the employment status of these workers by looking at their payment terms and working obligations. Problems arise when HMRC take the view that these workers are meeting all of the criteria of employees and should therefore be going through the books. In these situations, it would be the farmer that would be hit with the tax and national insurance bill, which has been known in some cases to be a 4-figure sum. Therefore, farming businesses are advised to assess the employment status of their workers to ensure that the lines between self-employed contractors and employees have not become blurred, and you're not going to be the next person to be caught out by HMRC. There are 5 key areas you can look at to assess the employment status of your workers, and these are control, obligation, payment, equipment, and finally, substitution. We will now look at each of these areas in turn. Control. A self-employed person would generally decide when and how a task is performed, while an employee would be more closely supervised and often given instructions by the employer. Obligation. An employee is required to turn up every day that they are contracted to work, and likewise the farmer is required to find work for them for every contracted day, while a self-employed contractor could say they're not coming next week because they've got work elsewhere, and likewise the farmer could say don't come next week, there'll be no work. Payment is a particularly easy way to assess between the self-employed contractors and employees. An employee will typically be paid at fixed intervals, be it monthly or weekly, while a self-employed contractor is responsible for raising invoices for work once a particular task is complete or a particular time period has lapsed. Equipment is also a good indicator, as employees will generally only bring small pieces of equipment or protective clothing, with all major pieces of equipment being provided by the employer, while a self-employed contractor would be expected to bring all the equipment they would require to do their job with them. And finally, substitution. Usually a self-employed contractor could send a suitably qualified replacement to do their job, while an employee would have to do the job personally. So that is the final way that you can assess between self-employed contractors and employees. When you're looking to employ a new employee, there are 6 steps which you should follow. Step 1, you should check that any potential employee has the right to work in the UK. There are 2 ways that you can do this. You can either check the original documents in the presence of the potential employee, or you can check the documents online. So to begin with, we'll look at checking the original documents. There are a recognised list of documents which can be checked for the right to work in the UK. The list will differ depending on whether the potential employee has a temporary or permanent right to work in the UK. It's important that you check at least 2 documents off that list and check that the documents look genuine, the date of births match, and the picture matches the person you are looking to employ. The check of these documents must always be done in the presence of the potential employee, and it is vitally important that the employer takes a copy of the documents once they have been checked. On those copy documents, you should very clearly write that a right to work check was carried out on X date and retain a copy of those documents. That is then your evidence that you have carried out a check to ensure you are not employing illegally. If, however, the original documents are not available, the other option is to go online and use a right to work share code. The potential employee would have to provide you with this right to work share code and their date of birth. And you can simply log in using that information, and information will appear on the screen involving a picture of the potential employee, their date of birth, and the date at which their right to work in the UK ends. So again, you should check that the date of birth is correct, the picture matches, and that they have a right to work in the UK currently. It's very important as well that you take a printout from that system as your evidence that you have carried out that check. These checks are vital, as if you were found to be employing illegally, you would be subject to a very significant penalty. The second step, once you have done that, is to register with HMRC as an employer. This, once again, is an online process, but a relatively straightforward one. There are two ways you can do this. Many farming businesses will already have a Government Gateway ID for VAT returns. That Government Gateway ID counts as an account with HMRC. So therefore, you can use that same login and username and access the Employing People section within that and enrol yourself for PAYE online. However, if you have any issues using that method, or you don't have an account, then you can quite simply go online and there's a very simple form to fill in. You will be directed to the correct form, whether you're a self-employed, whether you're a sole trader or a partnership, and you can then fill in this simple form regarding your trading name, how many employees you look to employ, and you will then be posted out your PAYE reference numbers 5 to 10 days thereafter. Step 3 is to get employer's liability insurance in place. It is imperative that you have this insurance regardless of who your employees are. So even if you're only employing family labour, you must have this insurance. It should cover up to £5 million for compensation for illness and injury that occurs when your employees are working for you. Once you have that insurance in place, you should display the certificate somewhere within the farm, as otherwise you can be hit with another penalty if the certificate is not on display. Step 4 is to check what minimum wage your employee is due. The minimum wage in agriculture is decided by the Scottish Agricultural Wages Board. The minimum wage varies depending on whether your worker has qualifications or is working towards qualifications. So for example, the minimum wage for most workers currently is £8.21 per hour. However, if your worker has qualifications at a certain level in agriculture or horticulture, they are entitled to a £1.25 per hour top-up. While if they are only working towards those qualifications, for a period of 18 months you can pay them at a lower rate of £5.30 per hour before they would need to move up to the £8.21 per hour. There's a very good guide produced by the Scottish Agricultural Wages Board that I would recommend you consult if you're at all unsure of what minimum wage should be paid to your employees. Step 5 is to get a written statement of employment contract in place. This should be in place within 2 months of your employee starting working with you. There are some key areas that should be included, i.e. rate of pay, hours expected to be worked, holiday entitlement, notice period required if they choose to leave the job. Again, the Scottish Agricultural Wages Board has an excellent template that includes all the necessary items that you would need to have. However, if there are separate circumstances that you wish to add extra into your employment contract, that is also okay. It can be tweaked to suit your situation and your farming business. And the final step to employing people is to auto-enrol your new employees on pensions. Pensions changed a few years ago and it is no longer the choice of an employee as to whether they wish to be in a pension scheme. It is now the responsibility of the employer to enrol that employee on a pension scheme. Therefore, when taking on new employees, you should choose a pension scheme and make sure that it's a properly recognised and accredited scheme and it does not have a minimum requirement for number of employees. Additionally, you will then require to write to all your employees to state that they are being opted into a pension scheme and confirm your eligibility and compliance with the pension scheme within 5 months of you taking on an employee. It's worth noting that employees can opt out of the pension scheme. However, even if you only have one employee and they opt out, you still require a pensions account so that when you do your payroll, you can declare that there are no contributions to be made this month because your employee has opted out. So please don't think, my employee's opted out, I don't need an account. That is not the case. So that is the 6 steps to employing people, and more information and handouts to support that can be found on the Employing People section of the Farm Advisory Service website. When looking into payroll systems, there are 3 main options to choose from. First of all, you can use the HMRC Basic PAYE tools. This is a computer program that you download onto your own PC, and you can then run your payroll from there and do most of the basic features that you require. However, it is worth noting that HMRC's tool cannot produce payslips. Therefore, you would have to make a manual note of the amount of money that your employee was being paid as per the payroll system screen, and then use another tool or a handwritten format in order to produce a payslip so that your employee could check they agreed with what they were being paid. Additionally, we've just spoken about pensions auto-enrolment. The HMRC Basic tool cannot support pensions auto-enrolment, so you would need to, if you were using this tool, you would need to have another system that allowed you to auto-enrol your employees on a pension scheme. However, it is a very cost-effective method of payroll if you don't have many employees. HMRC's Basic tool was designed for people with 9 or fewer employees. Second option you have is to use an accountant or bookkeeper. So this option very much takes the onus off of you. Somebody is doing a lot of the hard work for you. You will need to provide basic information regarding what employees are due to be paid that month, how many hours they worked, what their rate of pay is, to allow your accountant or bookkeeper to do the process. But they will then arrange for the employee to be paid, the payslip to be produced, and any necessary reporting to be carried out. However, it is worth noting that although this is a good method if you're particularly pushed for time, you will sometimes pay more for an accountant to do it rather than use some of the other options. The third and final option is to use an off-the-shelf package or cloud-based software. This has very much been in the news lately with the move to making tax digital, so I'm sure you're aware of the many companies that can offer these cloud-based packages. They are very good in that they can integrate many features at the same time, and often people can have their accounts and their payroll all within the one electronic system, keeping things as simple as possible. A cloud-based software will be able to automatically calculate holiday and sick pay allowances, do your reporting to HMRC and your end of tax year requirements. However, there is a general level of computer literacy required to be able to operate these programs. So as you can see, there's advantages and disadvantages for each option, and when starting out employing somebody, it is worth taking the time to look into all options and decide which one would suit your system best. And in the final part of this video, we're going to look at income tax and national insurance. Income tax is charged on an employee's wage above £12,500. So that £12,500 is deemed the personal allowance, and every employee is entitled to that. So therefore, if an employee doesn't earn £12,500, they will never have to pay income tax. Income tax is charged at different rates on different thresholds of income. So therefore, the same rate of tax will not be paid on everything that an employee earns. For example, from £12,500 up to £14,549, income tax is charged at 19%. But on any income above that £14,549, the rate is higher and increases incrementally. Income tax comes off of an employee's payslip before they are paid, and it's paid directly to HMRC. Again, linking back to automatic electronic payroll softwares, they would calculate this automatically for you and allow the process to work smoothly. National insurance is taken from an employee's pay each period. So for example, for most, it would be monthly. Similar to income tax, the rate of national insurance paid depends on the level of income. There is a lower earnings limit for national insurance. So rather than a personal allowance for income tax, it's a lower earnings limit for national insurance, which is £503 per month. So an employee will only be charged national insurance on any earnings above £503 per month. And there are 2 different rates that national insurance is charged at, depending on the rate of income. So as the rate of income increases to the higher band, the rate of national insurance decreases. Again, it's worth noting that your electronic softwares will calculate this automatically, but if not, there is a lot of information available on how much national insurance employees should be paying for each band of income. Employees' contributions are quite often known as primary contributions, and there are then the secondary contributions, also known as employers' contributions. They are paid to HMRC as part of the PAYE bill. Unlike employees' contributions, the rate that national insurance is paid at does not decrease once the higher rate of income is earned. So for example, for employers' contributions, once the wage is above £719 a month, all national insurance is charged at 13.8%. However, I will now go on to tell you about the employer's allowance, which allows you to reduce those secondary or employers' contributions. So all employers are entitled to £3,000, which will reduce the contributions that they pay as employers. Every tax year, there is an absolute maximum of £3,000 that can be claimed. That £3,000 will run out when either you have claimed it all or the tax year has ended, whichever is soonest. So even if you get to the end of the tax year and you haven't used your £3,000, it doesn't roll over so that you have an extra allowance the following year. It purely ends and you start again with a new £3,000 at the start of the new tax year. You only need to claim employment allowance once when submitting your payroll. So there will be a field, are you eligible for employment allowance? You would look to tick yes there, and that claim would continue until you stopped it. It's worth noting a couple of things about when you should click no on are you eligible to seek employment allowance. People sometimes think that once they have claimed their maximum £3,000 in a year, that makes them no longer eligible and they should tick no. That is not the case. You are still eligible for employment allowance, you just happen to have claimed everything you're entitled to in that year. So do not click no at that stage, it just means there'll be no deductions on your monthly contributions that month. Additionally, if an employee leaves you, you should wait until the next tax year before you change your answer to no for are you eligible for employment allowance. So for example, say your employee leaves in December, wait until the new tax year starts in April before changing your answer to no. It's also worth noting that you can backdate employment allowance claims up to the 2015-16 tax year. So if you've not already been taking full advantage of this, then it's worth looking into the possibility of backdating your claims so that you can have some national insurance contributions reduced. That is a brief summary of what you need to know when employing people and the 6 steps you should follow to get somebody set up on your payroll. There are other handouts and links to support the information provided in this video, which can be found on the Employing People section of the Farm Advisory Service website.